world you're located. I'm really excited to be joined here today by Sonia Bradley. My name is Hannah Babineau, and I am the head of partnerships over at Data Appeal.
And I'm Sonia Bradley. I'm the Chief Inclusion and Community Relations Officer for Visit Sacramento in California.
Amazing. How are you doing, Sonia?
I'm great. That's a lovely day for me, so all's good. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. We're excited to chat today, really talk about measuring engagement and kind of the strategies that you have, especially around events. I know Sacramento is becoming quite a foodie city, so really excited to explore kind of the trends. Have you gone from kind of the state capital to really being known for some unique things over the last few years?
Absolutely.
So today we're going to talk about a few different things. I know maybe for those of you who aren't super familiar with Data Appeal, talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, and then I'll jump into really how that visitor experience is changing, especially with all the latest AI technologies. Then switch gears a little bit to how a destination can leverage this and stay competitive despite these changes. Then I will pass the baton over to Sonia so she can chat a little bit about her experiences kind of in measurement, community engagement, and their really cool event strategy, and kind of leave it with our contact information in case anyone has any questions or wants to get in touch with us. So, really quickly, for those of you who might not know Data Appeal super well, is we are an Italian-based company operating worldwide, really specializing in data and insights for tourism destinations of all sizes. We work with over 500 destinations now, really worldwide. We've just surpassed the 50 country mark, and these could be destinations at country levels, small city levels, or villages, to anything in the middle, ranging from, urban cities, states, regions, etc. And really, what we were founded on back in 2014 was this feedback economy, because we were seeing that, us as visitors, as tourists, even as, residents, we rely so much on online feedback. We check reviews when making an online purchase, deciding where out, to choose our restaurant when going out to eat, which hotel to book, which destination. But we saw that destinations weren't leveraging this information. In fact, we found that 94% of reviews, people will avoid a business if there's negative feedback. And 99% of us will read at least one review before making a purchase or a reservation online. So we know that this feedback economy is really essential. But being able to combine that, so why visitors are choosing what they are, with different data sets like flights, spending, events data, hotel prices, it really starts to tell a story about what's happening in a destination. And destination managers can really leverage this information to understand who's coming to their destination, where are they coming from, are there specific seasonality patterns, maybe where they're spending certain, it could be a different neighborhood, a specific industry, what they love about the destination, how the destination can improve and stay competitive. So we've done all this through a dashboard called DAI Destinations. And this dashboard combines a lot of different data sets. And the really cool thing is that we've really taken the industry from data to dashboard to dialogue. And now we're really focusing on being able to talk with your data and ask it questions. So, how am I improving over year? Or what can I improve? Or maybe how can I send the right message at the right time to my visitors coming from this specific market? So that's really where we're heading, which really brings me in to kind of this next topic, which is the visitor experience. So I love the quote saying that visitors yesterday searched, today's visitors ask, and tomorrow's will delegate. So really what that means is we've gone from searching where to go, what to do, to now asking ChatGPT or companies like Mindtrip, what do you recommend in this destination? And now we're seeing that tomorrow it will go from making a booking, reserve me a vacation with this budget. This is, the type of thing I'm interested to doing, maybe a family friendly, budget friendly, sunny destination on the beach, and it books for you, kind of linking in with all the information. And so, kind of based on this, it's really important that destinations leverage that and they're being able to be seen first in the searches and first in terms of their content online. In fact, AI is so important. We're seeing that over half of millennials are using AI when they're researching and planning their trips, which is huge. Same thing, Gen Z at 45% and Gen X nearly at 40%. So this just shows how important it is on the visitor side. So really means that the destinations also kind of have to keep up on their side as well and how they're presenting their destination. Another stat that I thought was quite wild was the fact that Wikipedia, which at least for my generation was kind of the Bible in terms of information and searching, and we've seen a huge decrease of 23% in the last 3 years in terms of their daily visits. So really, the internet is changing, I'd say, quite drastically. I don't know, Sonia, on your end, if you're seeing any wild changes in terms of your visitors, how they're finding you, maybe there's new ways that people are exploring Sacramento.
You know, I I thought the AI stat was very interesting. But we have, started definitely dive into using AI a little bit more because we know that's how people are searching. Social is still huge for us, however, at least on the awareness at the awareness stage. In terms of the booking and working with, OTAs, that sort of thing. I know AI starts to play a big role for that, but we're trying to keep up as best we can for sure.
I think, yeah, we're at the sprinting phase right now because it seems like new technologies are coming out. Every week there's something new or updates are happening. So I
Right.
think we're all kind of it's hard also, I imagine, to plan as well, when you don't know what will happen a year from now in terms of these new technologies. I know you guys mentioned social. Are you still using influencer marketing? Is that something that's still important or a little less so?
Oh no, we're still using influencer marketing. And I think, today you just have to really vet people really well, and ensure that their audience is real and authentic. But the key is ensuring that the audience that they're targeting is the audience you want, right? So influencers still play a role in our strategy for sure.
That's amazing. Have you guys made the switch to virtual influencers or so far all real?
As far as I know, because I've seen them in person, they're real, but we haven't gone down that route just quite yet.
Okay, okay. I've seen a few. I think it was Visit Kazakhstan now has a virtual, it's like a cartoon influencer to like help awareness for kids, which I'm like, wow, times are changing.
For sure.
Oh, cool. So yeah, I think really as we are mentioning, to stay competitive, it's really just understanding, data. I think before maybe 10 years ago, all destinations said, yes, we need to purchase data, almost to check a box, if you will, to say, yes, we use data to tell our stakeholders. But really for us and kind of our mission and our goal is to take this data because there's so much insights that can happen and make it insightful, make it actionable, and really make an impact from it. And I think that's the beauty now of all the technology because now you can essentially discuss and collaborate with your data. Show me the trends, that you're seeing over the last few years. And thanks to all this technology, you can, stack data sets on top of each other and what maybe took someone months to complete and now takes just minutes. And I always love, I think it was Jeanette Rausch, who's the head of AI over at Brand USA. She said, treat AI like your intern. That really stuck with me because I think
Hmm.
everyone is like, oh, it's replacing. And it's not, it's supporting and helping because I think you guys on the destination side kind of need to stick to what you do best, which is serving your visitors, making sure you're creating campaigns that resonate, making sure that you're out and about with your community and not sitting, going through spreadsheets and graphs and going through data. So kind of with that, we just wanted to share a couple of the essentially, whoops, there we go. Kind of our advice for destinations based on all this change. And the first is to make sure that there's high quality content online. So basically what that means is make sure that your destination is putting out there what you want out there because the internet is forever. So being able to show the destination in the light that you want it represented in. If you want to be known for a destination on sports, tourism, or wellness, or family-friendly destinations, make sure that content is up there. And when people are searching online for things to do, that, whether it's tags and geoscapes, make sure your content is being up there. Another kind of insight that we have is really focus on positive sentiment, which is a lot what I think our kind of the foundation of our data is based on, is really understanding what is it that visitors like and dislike about the destination, how you can improve or how you can leverage your strengths, especially maybe as they differentiate from competitors. And I think it's quite cool to see different trends emerging, whether that could be, hey, our destination, especially if it might be hard to differentiate against competitors in terms of offering to say, hey, we're really family friendly, or we have, even great parking availability, or we're less crowded in our city center, so you can walk around more. So really finding where that positive sentiment comes through and being able to kind of make that shine. The third one is kind of having clear and structured data. So again, data is not only something to be purchased and check a box anymore. It's something that needs to be included that aligns with visitor strategies or your destination management to understand how assets are performing. And the last one here is having a strong online reputation. So again, nowadays visitors, they won't come to you. You have to come to them. So making sure that again you are shown in the light that you want to be shown in, and becoming first of mind for your visitors. I don't know, Sonia, anything you want to add? Agree, disagree?
I think this hits the nail on the head, for sure. I think the high quality online content, that's really, you talked about AI replacing people. I still believe that the humans in the destination are still best served to create that online quality content. And then when how the scrapers go in and find that data, that's what you want appearing, when folks are using AI. So I think that's where we, and as destinations, really can really shine, making sure that there's quality content, and then the ability to have the data presented to us in a way that it doesn't, like you said, take days to go through, helps us, do all the things that we need to do. So I like this a lot.
Oh, good. I'm glad it resonates. So now I'll say I'll pass the kind of the wand, the baton. We're gearing up for the Olympics, so the relay stick or the Olympic torch over to you to really learn more about your experience. So I'm going to ask you a few different questions about how you guys are measuring different things, your overall event strategy. Feel free, to kind of have a think about it. Just wanted to show this here, and kind of as some context. So I know the Visit Sacramento team, you guys look at both your city, but also your county as well. So also kind of your surrounding neighborhoods, which we'll touch upon a little bit more, since I think a lot of destinations, maybe they might have the name of their city, but they're really responsible for their greater area and the territory that might escape their city borders a little bit, especially if there might be attractions or an airport that might sit outside of those boundaries.
Hmm.
So the first question is that you guys have invested really heavily in community engagement and to position yourself as a vibrant and welcoming destination. And I did share a couple screenshots that we found from the dashboard that really show your visitors. I asked it the question, what do people think about, the overall community of Sacramento? And you can see lots of people praising your accessibility, your accommodation for people with disabilities. So that is amazing. So I definitely wanted to highlight the work that you're doing, but kind of maybe take me back a little bit. So how did you approach kind of measuring something really quite intangible as reputation and local connection?
Yeah, honestly, my first thought to that is probably skeptically and cautiously. When you're, in the work that we do, when we measure, room nights or bookings, et cetera, there are contracts or things that you can actually see. So this is always going to be a little different when you're trying to get an understanding or, as I said, to get a vibe of what people are thinking. But because there's not a hard and fast measurement. So, but we knew that the technology existed to be able to measure sentiment because we're so active on so many platforms. So the idea that there was an ability to sort of aggregate and develop an insight using a tool for us to inform the work. We started, sorry, I'm going to jump back a little bit. We actually started measuring sentiment years ago, right? When we thought was at that time was the cutting edge, but where we have found ourselves now is to be able to dig deeper to really get a sense, drill down on what the sentiment is for people. So our approach is simply was just let us let us look at this tool to see if we can pull something out of it that was actually useful. And so, and like I said, it's probably cautious because there's so much online, right? And how do you weed out the things that aren't helpful at all? So I think we went in it eyes open, but moving just a little bit cautiously because there's just
Yeah.
so much out there for us.
It's true. And I think what you said also really resonated with me because there is a big difference between reputation and perception, I'll say, because reputation is really people who have been to your destination. They've, I'll say, cared enough, whether it's positive or negative, but they cared enough to leave a review or a social post about a specific business
Right.
versus perception. I think has a lot less value because it could be someone who's never been to the destination, just putting something on the World Wide Web to be seen, to be heard without something, I'll say like a tangible experience behind it. So I really
Absolutely.
think
Go.
being able to kind of divide those two, and I don't want to get too technical, but being able to maybe geolocate some of this information to see this is where we're doing well, not only in the grand scheme of the theme, but also maybe it's a neighborhood or it's a
Mhm.
business that's doing really well and they're supporting other businesses in the area.
Right. And you can see, I mean, as we get down this, we saw that there's pockets of areas that, on in your display, there's red, green, and so forth, but you can see green like in the middle of some pink or some red. So for sure, that's what you start to see when you're able to drill down.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah. I'll just bring it up here.
Hmm.
And it's quite cool because as you even zoom in further, you can see if there's pockets, specific districts or neighborhoods. And
Hmm.
red doesn't, I'll say now, red doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just means it's below average.
Yeah.
So definitely no, you guys are still doing an amazing job. I think some of, especially this pocket here, almost
Hmm.
90, that's insane. We never see sentiment that high. So you guys are definitely doing something right. And I think what really resonated with me is how much attention you put to things like accessibility and people with disabilities, whether that's something physical or, that you can't see. I think you guys are doing great work there.
Thank you.
Switching gears completely, let's talk a little bit about how you guys are becoming quite a foodie city, which I think maybe, especially for the European audience who might not know, Sacramento is the capital of California. So you guys and at least for me, coming from the States, I wouldn't have first said a foodie city. So kind of tell me a little bit about your reputation to become kind of America's farm to fork capital. And you recently hosted an amazing event, and we talked about it a little bit before, the Terra Madre Americas, which are coming, I think, to Italy, where I'm based next year or later this year.
Mhm.
So help me kind of understand how did you use the data to validate kind of some of these initiatives and maybe your brand transformation a little bit, and how did you kind of understand how this resonated with both your visitors and your local residents?
Hannah, it's been a 13, 14-year journey. And a lot of it was anecdotal over the years, but um, over the years, just between growing press coverage and just the consistency and authenticity and really the legitimacy of who we are. I mean, you're dealing with an area that, first of all, California feeds the world. We're going to put that out there. And our region alone has like 150 different types of foods or crops and food producers, et cetera. And so the variety of food that comes from our region feeds the world. I mean, we're like the second largest rice growing region in the country. We actually
Wow.
export what's called a short grain rice to Japan. It's actually a sushi rice. We're the almond capital of the world, right? We grow wine grapes here, so it's always been here. I always say people who came for the gold rush, very few of them got rich, but really the wealth was in the land, right? It was in the soil along the region. So I say that to say it's never been just a marketing slogan, but it's really who we are. And it's with our chefs and our farms and so forth. And then over time, people start to really start to see that the food system here and the chefs and the restaurants were very high quality. Some of them grew up here and they left and they came back and they established restaurants and the food scene has just grown incredibly. And then there was a California Michelin guide and Sacramento has today, this is the second or third Michelin guide for California. And Sacramento has about 13 restaurants and it listed, there's various degrees of we have two with a single star and California itself, right, has dozens of Michelin rated restaurants. So over time, this reputation, we talked about reputation versus perception, the reputation became real because um, the true influencers, the people who understand food, validated what we've always known. And that's jumping ahead a little bit. quite frankly, our boss and CEO was having conversations with people and learned about Terra Madre Salone del Gusto, which is held in Torino, Italy, and has been there for over 20 years. It's like the largest food conference, and it's around the slow food movement, right? Fair and clean food for all. And our hats off to particularly Europe, how they really embrace the slow food movement. And having that conversation, having them understand about that Sacramento is also a part of that, wants to believe in fresh food and healthy foods for people. And Torino's been doing it for over 20 years, and they wanted to have an America's version. And long story short, they selected Sacramento as the home for Terra Madre Americas, which encompasses all of North America and South America. Um, and so we had our first full year in 2025. So in the odd years, it's in Sacramento, and in the even years, such as this year, it will be in Italy, which we're all very excited. Some of us actually will have a chance to attend. But all that to say, a lot of it was anecdotal, first and foremost. A lot of it was felt like, oh, it's just a marketing ploy. But as I said, the reality of what's on the ground, what's rooted here, is real. And so that's, how we took on the America's Farm to Fork Capital mantle. And then we saw sentiment start to rise. We saw more press coverage. We saw people talking about our food scene. We talked earlier about Torino and Sacramento, very similar, not as well known because it's Italy, right? Everyone knows Milan and Rome. In California, everyone knows LA and Hollywood and San Francisco. And so Sacramento's a little different, but we are the capital. And people come, and it's an unexpected joy when they come and they sit in one of our restaurants and they meet the chefs, or they go to one of our year-round farmers markets and they'll see a chef selecting the foods for the menu that night, and they get to talk to them. It's very welcoming, it's very accessible, it's very open. And so what we found is, as we dig into the data, right, food and dining kept rising to the surface, right? It's our highest ranking score, in fact. And you drill down, and we talked about you seeing pockets of places. So, as a community engagement person, I love when you go into a neighborhood and you've got these, 6 or 7 mom and pop restaurants where people are gathered in the neighborhood, and it's community, but the food is amazing because it's generational, and grandma might have shared a recipe and is passed down to her children and the grandchildren. So again, you start to see that in the data. So what was anecdotal, what was maybe shared by media persons, now coming out in the numbers, which is really cool to see. And it just continues to grow from there. So we're just excited. I rambled on a little bit, but we're so excited about
No,
how this is taking off.
as you should be. You guys should be really proud. I know we saw, I think just in the screenshot, your sentiment in food and beverage has increased. So it's the journey's not over. Also, is that a fair assessment? You're still continuing.
Absolutely.
It's just beginning.
It's just beginning. And yeah, it's funny, like, we've been talking about it for years, right? But there are people who come in every day, and it's completely surprising to them that this is here. And so every day someone learns something new about us, or it becomes like mind-blowing to them how great the food scene is in Sacramento.
It's true. And I feel like it's almost a microcosm of really all of California because you have that amazing Asian influence, you have the Mexican influence, you have kind of all the more traditional soul food. So, and as you say, you're so lucky with your location in terms of the products that you have naturally.
Mhm.
So the fact that it's all local, I think also doesn't hurt at all. So not
No.
only do you have a cultural influence with these local products, and I think you're positioned quite well geographically and
Mhm.
and with everything. So amazing work.
I'll just you said something very important. The diversity of our food scene. Honestly, the diversity is truly California's superpower, and it's
Yeah.
certainly Sacramento's when we're like the third most diverse city in the country, in fact. So to be able to take those cultures and pour it into our food, I mean, what better way to have community is through food?
That's amazing. That's amazing. I did not know that. Do you know the first two? Is it New York or
They're
in
both
LA or?
It's I want to say actually the Stockton area, which is just south of here, and I think it's LA. But
Okay. Good
we've always
company.
been in the what's that?
Good company.
Yeah, we're all in California has like eight or nine of the top most diverse cities in the country. So we're very fortunate.
That's amazing. Very cool. So switching gears a little bit, but I know kind of one of your key goals was really to ensure that tourism benefited not just maybe you as a city, but really extend across the wider region. So could you share a little bit about the insights that help you understand both the local and regional impact of both events and initiatives in general?
Yeah, I would say I've always wanted I shouldn't say but we've always wanted how do we ensure um that more communities are brought into the tourism ecosystem, right? Especially those that might be even underrepresented. Because the central city is so important to us, right? And that's where our convention center, most of our major hotels are. So we understand that. We understand where the bread is buttered. But like I said, we have our favorite sort of eateries and attractions in other neighborhoods, but they're no less valuable, than some of the more larger places. So um, we wanted to make sure that we can tell the broader story of Sacramento or the destination, and how do we drive visitors to some of these communities so they can economically benefit, right? At the end of the day, our job is to drive some economic impact to our region. What we like to say is really to improve the quality of life, and we do that through economic benefit to our communities. And so, if you think about the festivals and events that we have, how do we get those 100,000 people or so to go to to visit some of these other communities? We have shown again, the data shows it's just opportunity that for people to visit some of these other areas. As an example, one of our biggest festivals, it's a music festival, and it's held right outside one of a major Latino community. It's not very far. So we 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 look at it and we go, so what can we do to push people in that direction? And so that is one of the initiatives that we've taken on to how to getting people into some of these other areas so that again, so these other communities can benefit. Um, and we've done it through a number of programs, and I could talk about it a little bit later, but we've done it through just some programs to introduce and generate that awareness for visitors coming to Sacramento.
I love that. And something that you made me think of is in terms of distribution, I think that also helps the experience because when a destination might be less crowded, have less people all concentrated in the same area, obviously their experience is worse and not to any detriment of, what you're doing wrong. It's just normal if there's long lines or waiting times or
Right.
you're like, hey, I can't move here. Obviously the experience is impacted by that. So I think it's so strategic as kind of this distribution, not only for providing the economic benefits of some of these maybe lesser known districts or neighborhoods, but also as a visitor too, because their experience, it's probably a lot
Right.
more personal. They might have more time with people who work at restaurants or at the local
Mhm.
businesses if they're going shopping or going to different attractions. That interaction has also completely changed and improved.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the incremental visitation, when it's more the community members, incremental economic impact, without overwhelming them, I think is a charge that destinations, have really tried to take on to just, like you said, distribute the tourism a little bit more equitably as best we can.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And it's obviously I'm not an easy task. It's not like have a sign that says, okay, last names A through C, go here.
Right, right.
But I really think the events are such a cool way to strategically get people to, hey, maybe we know this month is really busy in this part
Hmm.
of town. Let's have something happening over here. So how can we kind of move people around? So amazing. I love that. My next question, kind of relatable, I'll say, in terms of distribution and over tourism, if we're still saying that word, is really kind of how you guys are becoming, you are an urban destination and kind of a large major city. So kind of I'm curious to see how you tackle measuring sustainability. And I always preface it by saying sustainability, it's a topic that means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It's not black and white. It's very complex. But I'd love to hear kind of how you guys get started. And I have to say, you're one of the first US destinations that I know that's really putting a big emphasis on measuring it because I think it's quite overwhelming. And I think a lot of destinations focus maybe just on the environmental side, but I know
Hmm.
your approach is a lot more holistic. So love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head, right? Sustainability is so wide and so complex. I'll just kind of say how we would use sustainability because it is different from every destination. So yeah, some folks it's about the environment, it's managing traffic. For us, we've thought this through. It's about how can we help preserve the culture and neighborhoods in our city. Because we're fortunate not to have the challenges of over tourism like some places do. And in a sense, we have the opposite a little bit, because folks are coming for conventions and meetings, still our bread and butter. But having said that, how do we tell these events, right? We talk about the events a lot because it's a core business area for us. Um, Again, to go back to economic development and like we talked about distributing tourism more evenly for us. If you think about it, our central city, like I said, has the convention center, major hotels, but we're 100 square miles, and I did the math, is also over 260 kilometers for those who
For
are.
the
um,
Europeans.
yes, and the distinct neighborhoods with diverse cultures. And shouldn't they benefit from tourism in some sort of way? And I always like that we don't make any promises, but we do try and encourage visitors to make that move. And obviously, I can't hold you by the hand and drag you somewhere, but there are methods, marketing methods, promotional efforts that we can do to help people see another part of Sacramento. So, as an example, we did a neighborhood video series that focuses on a couple of individual neighborhoods where you talk about their food, their attractions, the people that live there, why you would want to go to visit. And it's like those of us who do travel. Sometimes you don't want to go to the most popular places, right, where there are crowds. So again, that's where you try and position Sacramento neighborhoods in that way. And then I look at the data again, and I look at this chart and I see, okay, we're actually pretty good on this sustainability index you have, right? And I start to see how where there's opportunities, right, for us to improve. And I talked about that pocket of green in between some of the pink. It's just like you said, it's not bad. It's just compared to the average, right? So we look at those pockets of opportunity, and I want to share that. And I try and share that. And I'll be honest with you, this is where I haven't done as good a job, but I want to be able to share that data with some of these areas because when I have conversations with these communities, first and foremost, if they don't know who we are, that's on us, but we have to introduce ourselves and we have to build trust with these communities. But if I can share this data with them, so look, you have people coming, you have people saying, really positive things about your restaurant or your service, et cetera. So how do we help you expand upon this again to drive that economic benefit to these areas? Excuse me. And again, the data just shows that we've got a baseline to start from as well. We've been with you for a little over a year now, and so we can start to show the movement of that, and then where we can improve as well. So that's how, as an urban destination versus say an environmental one, we look at sustainability. I'm looking to help preserve those neighborhoods and preserve those cultures, because they're so important to the city and region as a whole.
Definitely. I love that. And I really like what you said about kind of going to those businesses and you have to, I think, kind of speak their language, so to speak. I'm personally not a data analyst, so if someone gave me a spreadsheet with a bunch of numbers, I would be like, oh,
Right.
thank you. So
Yeah.
being
Right.
able to show them tangibly, like, hey, did you know people really love your service or you have really great prices? Like that's something like you guys should definitely promote yourself, as like a budget friendly type of place if there are certain lists or being able to find their assets that they can really make shine. And we've even seen with some clients, if it's like a dish that was really popular and then
Hmm.
maybe
Hmm.
they stop making it and sometimes they don't even know. So being able to say, hey, this is what you're doing great. Or, on the flip side, hey, did you know like people really complain about parking availability? How can we support you in that? Especially kind of as you're kind of the kind of more unbiased party in the
Hmm.
city. So maybe it is something, how can we work with your local businesses? And if it is, maybe you need a parking lot or parking meters. And even as something so small as that, I know another use case with another destination similar size was like ATM machines. A lot of people were complaining, like, hey, this restaurant only takes cash. There's no ATMs nearby. And it was becoming quite a big problem. So being able to kind of address that, and certainly it's not the restaurant manager who goes to the ATM supply store and then puts one in next door. So being able to kind of raise that awareness at a bigger level, I think that's really important for you to kind of support your local businesses and operators.
Well, and it's like open hours. Like if
Yep.
you know, if we know when events are coming, do they know when events are coming? So maybe you should be open later. Maybe you should open earlier, right? When we have so we have a California Ironman and that we host here. One of their largest number of participants as well. So we make our way to some of the local businesses and say, hey, we've got it's a, I don't know if you're an Iron Man. I am not, but
I'm not.
it's a ridiculous as an early start, right? But you have friends and family out there cheering people on for hours, and it's really an amazing community. But is the coffee shop open to serve the family waiting for their loved one to get out of the swim, right? Or the bike or have you. So, on the one hand, yes, you want to tell them what's coming, but you also want to give them really actionable um opportunity or actionable things to do, right? So that it
Yeah,
can
yeah.
help the business.
I have to say, PSA to all destinations who work with local operators, if a business changes their opening hours, please make sure they're also updating their pages on Google or TripAdvisor or
Yes.
Foursquare or Yelp, because
Yes.
that is, as we talked about at the beginning, having correct information. Your visitors only are as smart as what they're finding online, which is what your businesses are posting.
Yes.
So, note
Yes.
to all operators,
Yes.
amazing to accommodate for events and different demand at different times. Make sure that information is also really accessible and constantly updated. So
Yes. Yes.
PSA is over. Cool. I'll jump to our, I think, second to last question here. So I talked a little bit about kind of the semantic analysis and really data appeal kind of as a company, hence the name Appeal. We focus a lot in terms of the experience through semantically analyzing reviews and social posts. So I'm curious, before kind of using data in general, what assumptions did you guys have about how residents and visitors, because they could be different, perceived your
Mhm.
city? And was there any surprise when you started kind of digging into the data and looking at the insights?
Um, yeah, so we actually and I don't know, we're still not sure, but we weren't sure people still just saw us as a government town, right? We're the capital of the state. There's a lot of government business here, a lot of government business is done here in Sacramento. Or we're a city that hasn't kind of grown beyond our gold rush history, which is a integral part of who we are, and we'll never take that away. But there's so much more, and I think a lot of cities can even say that. And so, we continue to use the megaphone to talk about the food, et cetera. And so again, the data has shown food and dining continues to rise to the surface and it continues to be the cherry on top. But as again, I'm going through the platform, family friendly is a positive for us as well. That's important to us. And we've kind of always known that, but kind of seeing it from the sentiment perspective is always helpful. Cultural activities have ranked high for us too on in your platform as well. So we can now start to kind of maybe shape all this data and understanding that we're getting what people are saying about us and again help drive campaigns if we want. So our newest leisure campaign is around some of the activities and how family friendly we are. So this is a good example of having that data available to us to form our strategy. And it's just important to how to help us improve, right? In some areas we did really well on accessibility. In some areas it seems that we can make improvements. And so we're actually this year we're going to make a big push and improving our accessibility content for people so that people have a better understanding of what's how what the accessibility looks like for visitors that need that service. So it goes both ways, and the important part is that you look at it objectively so you can make some sound decisions.
I love that. I think also, as you mentioned, for accessibility communication, really important as well. I know there's a destination in Poland. I listened to their speech. They're doing a big push right now for accessible tourism. And even as something that might not seem so important, but like they're putting also the widths and the dimensions of wheelchairs because different
Hmm.
brands have different measurements. And being able, instead of calling a hotel, sending an email that might take, 2, 3 days, if best case they do respond to you, having that information already available. Because I'd say nowadays, most of them do say if they are or they're not maybe wheelchair accessible, but having that dimensions is kind of taking it to that next level. So
A
I love
hundred
what you said
percent.
about communication.
Yeah, information is key.
Definitely, yeah, it is the power. All right, I'm sad we're coming to an end. I have a last question for you. So, what would you like to share with other destinations who are looking to start measuring engagement, reputation, and any kind of sentiment in general? Free question. Love to kind of pick your brain here.
Sure. Well, it kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning. The technology is available and it's here. And honestly, it can be overwhelming. And as someone who goes in and looks at it and still fiddling around, is trying to find some consistency, it can be overwhelming. But what I've learned is I taking just the time to grasp a little bit at a time for this is probably the best way to do that. Um, and as marketers and community engagers, all right, my phone just won't stop. Okay, as community engagers, the number one thing that we know, and I repeatedly have probably said it till I'm blue in the face, understanding our audience is the number one thing we need to do, right? That's our charge. We understand what our audience wants, what our audience needs, and being able to address that. I won't say it doesn't always make our job easier, but it gives us I think, a clearer path. So I think just looking at the engagement, looking at the different themes and categories, and just kind of parsing out and seeing where there's opportunity and seeing where there's areas to improve. And when you start to kind of take it bit by bit, it becomes a little bit easier to digest.
Yeah, I would say it probably becomes also easier to measure as well when you know exactly what you're looking for. Because I think a lot of destinations that we see, kind of the hardest part isn't reading the data, it's knowing the questions to ask. So
Good point.
being,
Yes.
I'd always say, and we say it as well, don't purchase data just because you need to check, purchase data. What are you trying to do? Because it looks different for everyone. We talked about
Hmm.
there's some destinations who need more visitors, some need less. Some need it maybe more balanced throughout the year. Maybe others want to have less visitors, higher expenditure. So it really does
Hmm.
look different. And I think there's different data that can support each of those things, whether it's sentiment, spending, flights, and or a combination of all of them. So I love what you guys are doing. Kind of, I think it's been really digestible in terms of kind of taking on, something, really focusing on it, and then kind of going from there. And I think you guys are doing incredible work in the US. You're one of the top scorers for a lot of different themes, food and beverage being one of them, and accessibility being another. So those are two amazing ones in my book. So really hats off to you guys. And I know it's a team effort. You have a great team behind you.
Absolutely. It's always a team. Yes.
Amazing. Well, we are coming to an end here. So just wanted to leave off with one quote that I really do like, which is destinations that measure and use data, they don't just analyze, they shape the future. And I think that comes to really shine light in what you guys are doing because the actions that you're taking impact who's coming to your destination. And I hope, you're getting visitors that leave a lasting impact. Obviously, economics are important. Are they spending, money in your destination? Are they heads in beds? But are they also leaving a really positive impact on your destination and its residents? So we'll leave there. I don't know, any final words from you? If not, I can send people off to our contact information.
No, thank you for sharing our story. It's definitely been a journey that we are definitely continuing, and I love that the data shapes the future, and it definitely has informed the work that we're doing.
Amazing. Well, for those of you who are listening, keen to learn more, we also did a customer story together a few months back. So
Hmm.
that is on our website if people want to check out. If people are curious to learn more about our data or our solution, this QR code here, feel free to scan it. That will take to you to a website and we'll contact you. And then obviously Sonia and I are happy to answer any questions directly. I know I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I think you are too, Sonia. I know you're a huge part of the Destinations International community. So I'm sure people might see us at different events, so feel free to get in touch, stop us. But we appreciate you joining us, depending what time of day it is. And thank you so much, Sonia, as well for your time and really your dedication to diving into the data as well.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, take care, everyone.